Hello students, in this session I am going to discuss regarding the web programming first chapter. So previously we had an online session where I have discussed basics regarding what is web programming. In this session I will be discussing the concepts which are important, like what is IP, Internet Protocol, what is DNS, Domain Name System, what is URL, and what is MIME. First, coming for the first concept, which is IP. So when I say IP, in general you need to understand one thing is, if I want to recognize one person with the other person, or if I want to differentiate one person with the other person, we'll be using names to identify each and every person. Similarly, when you come across devices that is connected in a network, if I form a network, as I told you, basically the concept of network is nothing but when you connect one device with other device, okay, through wired or wireless mode. Through wired mode or wireless mode, if you are connecting one device with the other device, it will form a network. When you connect one computer with the other computer, or one mobile phone with the other mobile phone with the help of a Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or a wired network, then it will form something called as network. Now I cannot give names for the computers. Since we cannot give names for the computers, we'll have something called as IP, which is nothing but Internet Protocol. Internet Protocol, and it is called as Internet Protocol address, or we'll simply say it as IP address. So this IP address is basically a 32-bit numerical value. Okay, so it is a 32-bit numerical value which is used to identify the devices that are connected on the network. So any device that are connected on the network, if you want to identify that particular device or differentiate one device with the other device, we need to provide some number for it. That number will consider as Internet Protocol or IP address, okay, which will be of 32-bit. Where this 32-bit will be divided into 4 sections, where each and every section will be made up of 8 bits. Okay, so this 32 bits, what you have, this 32 bits will be divided into 4 divisions, and these 4 divisions will be having totally of 8 bit each. That is, I'll have first 8 bits, it will be followed by a dot, next 8 bits dot, next 8 bits dot, and then next 8 bits. Okay, and this 8 bits this 8 bits value will range from 0 to 255. In the sense, by using this 8 bits, I can represent a value starting from 0 to 255. So this we just discuss, like it is like your how to represent a numerical value, that is number, in the form of ones and zeros, that is bits. As you know, bits is nothing but it is only machine level language which will have only either 1 or 0. Right, now we have these bits, 32 bits. So if I want to write these 32 bits, it will range from 0 to 255. In the sense, if I consider the first section, first 8 bits, it will have some value. Suppose if I write some value like 8 zeros, this will represent one number which is 0. So I can write IP address as 0.0.0.0. So this will be the IP address for me. But if I want to represent in the form of bits, then the first 0 will be represented as 8 bits, like 8 zeros. If I want to represent 1, I am going to represent the first 7 bits as let us say I have 2, 2, and one more 2, 6, 7, and last bit will be 1. So this will be representing like 0.0.0.1. Okay, so like that you can represent a value from 0 to 255. Like I can write 255.255.255.255. okay, where a single 255 will be represented by like 8 number of ones, that is 11, 11, 1111. This will be representing the number which is 255. Okay, so this type of representation will consider it as IP address. So hope this is clear. IP address is a number which will be having a total of 32 bits, where it will be divided into 4 sections, where each and every section we are going to have it as 8 bits, which will range from 0 to 255. What is the use of IP address? It is going to identify, or it is going to represent or differentiate one device with the other device that is connected on the network. Okay, now after this, next we'll have something called as class. Next we'll have something called as class. We have when in an IP address we have different set of classes called as class A, B, C, D as well as E. So whenever you consider any class or any network, in that network we are going to whenever you are designing the network, we are going to consider the classes. What are the classes and what is the use of classes? When you construct a class A, in the sense, as I told you, if you have an IP address of 32 bits, in that 32 bits we are going to divide something called as network ID as well as host ID. Okay, what is network ID and what is host ID? In the sense, if I connect some set of devices, like any 4 devices together, it will form one network. Okay, so I told you, if you connect one device with the other device, it will form a network. Now if this is one network, and if I have one more set of 4 devices, and these 4 set of devices are connected to one another. Okay, so this will be first network, network 1, and this will be network 2. And if these two are connected together, this is called as inter-network. So we are connecting one network with the other network. So these type of networks, that is what we are seeing in our present situation, where we'll have network of networks, which is nothing but your internet. Internet is nothing but your network of networks. If it is a networks of network, now if I want to differentiate first network with the second network, we will be using network ID. And if you want to differentiate between the system that is present in the, say, your network itself, then we'll be using host ID. Understanding? So when you consider a network, if you have some group of networks, say for example, if you just consider something like your college name itself, whenever you consider your college name itself, or just take an example of your register number. When you consider register number, I have something like your Bangalore North University. If Bangalore North University is providing BCA, it is providing BSc, it is providing BCom and other set of courses. In that case, if BCA is identified by some symbol like R, okay, and BSc is represented by S, and commerce is represented by C. So it is nothing but, if you observe your register number will have something like R, S and then C, which will be representing your related course. That is, this will be acting as a network, and under this network you will have your own register number, which will be acting as your host ID. So whenever you are constructing any network, we are going to divide that network address or IP address into two things. One is like your network ID, other one is host ID. And this network ID and host ID will be again divided into these classes, like class A, class B, class C, class D and class E. So these are different types of classes that we have, where in the first class what happens is, only the first digit or the first bit is used to represent network ID. So to represent network ID, we'll be using only 1 bit. Okay, and again, while coming for second class, we'll be using 2 bits. First 2 bits will be used for representing network ID in class B. Similarly, in class C, we are going to use first 3 bits for representing network ID. Similarly, we'll also have class D as well as class E. So what this happens is, as if you consider class A, here the number of networks will be less. Number of network ID will be less compared to that of class B. Again, class B will contain more number of networks compared to class A. Again, class C will be having more number of networks compared to class B. So this is how the range will be when you consider what is IP and what is the different type of classes you have. I'm going to represent in detail regarding what is the class and how many number of network IDs can be formed, how many number of host ID can be formed in your notes. When you are representing, I'll be representing how many number of networks ID can be created, how many number of host ID can be created by using IP address. So next concept we'll come across is DNS. Okay, so DNS stands for domain name system. Okay, so what is domain name system is? Domain name system is nothing but whenever you are representing any kind of network or any device in the network, we have represented IP address. Now if I have thousands of devices, I cannot remember all the thousands of devices and its IP addresses. We have thousands or hundreds or crores of devices we have. So if I want to represent any one individual device, I need to remember the IP address, which will be very difficult. To avoid that problem, we'll come across this concept called as domain name system, where what does domain represent is, domain represent any one particular IP address which will be replaced by some names. Okay, so we'll have some group of domains that can be represented one particular IP address or some set of IP address. For example, if you consider something like .com, which are basically used, .net, and other things like .gov, which is government based. So these are called as domains. So domains in the sense, if I have a server, that server belongs to this domain called as .com. In the sense, google.com, yahoo.com, or all the different types of these things, that is domains, will be present in one server, which is like your domain name server, which is called as name server. Okay, so name servers will have the list of domains that will belongs to .com. Similarly, we'll have .net related names also will be available on the internet in the form of name servers. Okay, so that is nothing but whenever I consider something called as fully qualified domain. Okay, whenever I say fully qualified domain name system, it will contain complete details in the sense what type of that is a protocol you are using, HTTP, and what is the name of the website, suppose say Google, and you have .com, what is the domain. Okay, so this type of representation where you're not going to skip any part of the domain is considered as the fully qualified domain name system. Okay, so in general, you can just understand network will have many number of computers where each and every computer will be having its own IP address. Now to remember that IP address, it will be very difficult. To avoid that function or to avoid that problem, we'll come across the concept of DNS, where each and every networks or each and every servers or devices will be given some names to it in terms of domain names. okay, which will contain fully qualified domain names, which will include all the details like what is the name of the website and what is the domain that you are using the website. So here you can also use .com, .net, and also you have represented something like .in, .bz, .uk, .us, that will be representing individual countries servers, which will have its own set of websites or set of details will be stored into that particular domains. Okay, now how this is going to be working in the real world environment is, now for example I told you, so whichever device that is requesting for information will consider it as client, and the device which will be providing the information will consider it as server. So if the client requests for information to the network, okay, from the network it is going to search for name server. Okay, from the name server it is going to search for your server device. From the server device it is going to access the files or documents that you are going to need. Say in the sense, if I just write google.com, this information first it is going to be sent to the network. From the network then the information will be sent to the name server. In the name server we'll have the list of details regarding google.com. So when I write google.com, we have some IP address for it. Say for example from 11 or 2.3.4 or something like that, we'll have some address. This address will be your server name, or the device that is your server will have this IP address. So whatever information that you are going to send will be sent to name server. From the name server it is going to identify the device. From the device you are going to get the response to your client. Okay, this is how we are going to use your domain name system. Hope this is clear. And next, coming for domain name system, usually we'll have two types of IP address that we are going to use in domain name system. I told you what is IP address also. IP address is the number or the given address which will be representing one device to the other device, or all the device that is connected to the network will giving some name, that name nothing but your IP address. Now in that case, if I divide it into 4 sections, it is called as IPv4, that is internet version 4, where it will have total of 32 bits, where it will be divided into 4 sections. Each and every section will be of 8 bits. Okay, next type of IP address what we have is, which is IPv6, which will have, we are going to divide into 6 sections, where each and every section will have some set of colon, and here we are going to use digits or decimal digits. Here we are going to use hexadecimal digits. Okay, which will include 16 symbols. Here it will include only 10 symbols, that is 0 to 9. Here it will include 0 to 9 and it will be followed by A to F. Okay, so what is the advantage here? If I am using IPv4, the number of systems I am going to represent will be less compared to that of IPv6, which has a huge possibility of representing more number of devices in the network. So in IPv4 as well as IPv6. Hope this is clear. So I'll continue with the URL as well as MIME in the next session.